Alright, so welcome back to Forest Shovel Strategies. For this video, I'm going to be talking about the pod animal strategy. Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video. So there's a lot of pod animals in this game, but not all of the pod animals would work well with this particular strategy. We're just going to be mostly focusing on the ones that would work best for this strategy. Starting with one of them known as the beech marten, okay? Now this one is easy to play, but it's going to score you 5 points for fully occupied trees. Meaning, if you are going the pod animal strategy, you might want to try to get either some butterflies or some birds, probably some birds, to put on top of, obviously, your tree. You're obviously going to want to get either some plants or some insects or some other potential animals that can go underneath, like the amphibians or something that can go underneath the tree. But you're definitely going to want to get a few of those so you can try to obviously completely fully occupy your tree to score as many points as you can with the beech marten, okay? It's one of the good ones, though, for the pod animal strategy. It's one of the good ones. Now, if you were going that route for the pod animal strategy, the best one here would actually be the silver fir tree as a tree, because it's going to score you 2 points for every side that gets occupied. So at most you could score 2, 4, 6, 8 points. At most you could score with a silver fir tree. So if you could get a few of these silver fir trees and get some beech martens and obviously lots of other animals and cards, then you could score a lot of points in this pod animal strategy. So that's one of the main paw animals that would work well, obviously, with the strategy. Now, if you can, in the beginning of the game, if you can get this flying agaric played, it will give you a card every time you play a pod animal. So this particular species of mushroom is going to help you with this particular strategy for playing animals that have paws, okay? Paw animals, okay? So that's another good card that would work well with, obviously, this particular game. And then, for instance, another good one that would work well with the pod animal strategy is the stag beetle, because the stag beetle gives you 1 point for every pod animal. So, and we'll probably come back to this momentarily, okay? But let's talk about the other effect that this will have. Because remember, you're going to want to try to surround your trees as much as you possibly can. Meaning, you're probably going to want to play some birds, right? Because the butterflies aren't going to score you much if you only get a couple of them anyway. So you're potentially going to want to access some of the birds, because a lot of them will give you more points anyway. But the stag, and the reason why I mention them now, is the stag beetle does let you play a bird for free if you satisfy the binocular condition, obviously. But so then what's a good bird you could potentially play with this particular strategy? Well, the goshawk, can't go wrong with that, because you get to play it for free, and the goshawk is an expensive card, so that would be a good one to play for free with the stag beetle. Another good one would be the Eurasian jay, because you get to take in it, well, you wouldn't get the extra turn, but at least you'd get 3 points with it. You wouldn't get the extra turn because you're playing it for free with the Eurasian jay here. But at least it would give you 3 points. But still, the goshawk is probably the best potential bird if you were going to go this particular route here with the pod animal. It would be the best bird that would work well with the pod animal strategy. But let's get back to the actual pod animals that would be best in this particular strategy. One of them is going to be this European hare here, because while they only score you 1 point on their own, you can have multiples of these European hares share the same tree on the same side. You could have 3, you could have 4, you could have 5, and so on, right? So the European hares are good. Even though they only score you 1 point, they are still really good with this particular strategy. And of course, if you have lots of hares, then that's only going to increase the points you get with your stag beetle. So the stag beetle is good all around. It's going to help you out big time, especially if you have lots of hares. And if you do have lots of hares, then that does mean that your red fox potentially is going to let you draw a lot of cards if you play this later, after you play a couple of these guys. And it's going to give you a lot of points for every hare you have. 2, in fact. So it gives you a few more extra points if you have some hares than the hares on their own. So another good pod animal that works well with this strategy that could potentially score you a lot of points. Obviously, the stag beetle is going to be a good one to have because obviously you're getting a lot of points already with just the stag beetle alone if you combine all these into the equation. Now, another good one would be the European badger here because it just gives you 2 points in general and it's easy to play. But you'll note it also potentially lets you play a paw animal for free. What would be a good paw animal to play for free if you were going this particular route? Well, that is actually going to be the lynx here. The lynx is probably one of the best ones you can play for free because when you play an animal, a mammal, or any card for free, you never get to activate its ability if it has one. And so the lynx here is going to score you 10 points if you have a rogue deer, which means this is another card you're going to need. You're going to need to have a rogue deer as well in your forest if you're going to score points with the lynx. But hey, you could play the lynx for free with the European badger, and now that's helping out your stag beetle even more, give you more points for mammals, for sure. Now, another good one for this strategy would be the raccoon, because some of these cards you might not be finding. You might be having a hard time tracking down those European hares, or maybe you have the lynx, but you don't have the roe deer yet, or maybe you have the roe deer, but you don't have the lynx yet. So there might be some things that you're having a hard time finding, and you might have a bunch of cards in your hand that aren't doing you any good because they're just not going to help you, except if you were just going to simply discard them. So another good card for the pod animal strategy is this raccoon here, because not only are you going to discard cards with the raccoon, which are going to go into your cave, okay, and then give you points at the end of the game based on how many cards you have in your cave, which would be here, obviously. You could get a lot of points thanks to this raccoon. You could potentially get a lot of points for sure if you have the raccoon in your strategy. If this is the strategy you're going with, because it is also a pod animal as well. So the raccoon's a good one, for sure. That will definitely help you out, for sure. And then, obviously, the bear is another potential good one to have in this particular strategy, because it is a pod animal, and maybe there just isn't a lot of good cards in the face-up display, and so you could put all of those cards in the face-up display, and get some extra points that way, potentially a lot with this brown bear. But it's not super useful. That's why I mentioned it last. It's probably the least useful in this strategy, okay? That's why I mentioned this one last. And like I said, since you're not playing a lot of birds and a lot of cards underneath the trees, you're potentially going to obviously want to focus on some other cards as well, for sure. But this is a valid, powerful strategy, so you're going to want to track down these kinds of cards if you're going to go the paw animal strategy. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.